So now I want to share a little bit about what has helped me to deal with psychosis. So growing up, when I didn't really have support about it, I would deal with psychosis by doing artwork. I would make artwork and drawings depicting some of my hallucinations, and I would write about my hallucinations and delusions. And in this way, I was able to use artwork to help cope with it on my own and to process the experiences in a safe way. I also found a lot of help in learning how to deal with psychosis in treatment. Getting therapy really helped, and being able to talk with a therapist that understands about psychosis. Increasing my sense of safety and stability really helped a lot to cope with psychosis, because this meant that my psyche didn't have to be as reliant on maladaptive coping skills, such as the psychosis, to deal with stress. I also found it helpful to learn how to ground myself, using my different senses to get grounded into my body and into this reality. I also just found it helpful to learn how to calm my nervous system in general, using skills like deep breathing, deep diaphragmatic breathing, and mindfulness meditation, along with other skills involved in the trauma resiliency model. I also found it helpful to practice learning how to do reality testing. Concerning both hallucinations and delusions, I found it extremely helpful to learn how to hold both realities in my mind at once. So some parts of me would have one view of reality, and then other parts of me would have another view of reality. For example, some parts may believe that a delusion is real, while other parts are not sure whether a delusion is real. In this case, I found it really helpful to not try to argue with myself about whether a delusion or hallucination is real, and instead just to try to accept that it could be real, but it also could not be real, and learn how to hold both experiences in my mind at once. This was really helpful for decreasing tension within my psyche between parts that believe different things, and helped me to feel safer overall. I used to try to ignore my hallucinations and delusions when I was aware of them, because I thought that paying attention to them would make them worse. However, I never actually found ignoring hallucinations or delusions to be effective. In fact, it seemed to only exacerbate the problem. Instead of ignoring hallucinations or delusions, I've found it very helpful to actually acknowledge them. It can be helpful to be curious about symptoms of psychosis instead of being afraid, to be open to understanding what information is being communicated from the subconscious. This can help you learn more about yourself and how to better take care of yourself. There's also often a lot of hidden symbolic meaning in psychosis. Psychosis can be a coping mechanism to manage stress. Psychosis involves a retreat from external reality into another reality, leading to changes in the view of reality. Psychosis can happen when the psyche fragments to protect the ego, and the mind retreats from the external dimension into a more symbolic, internal subconscious dimension. This is the same subconscious dimension that Carl Jung talks about in discussing the collective unconscious. Hallucinations and delusions can serve to protect parts of the psyche. For example, they can deliberately scare you to compel a retreat from reality into the relative safety of the subconscious. There can also be comforting hallucinations, such as voices that say comforting things to you, or seeing other comforting things, such as seeing animals. For help in understanding how psychosis is used as a coping mechanism by the psyche, I recommend reading the book The Inner World of Trauma by Donald Kalshed. Experiences of psychosis, like hallucinations and delusions, can be viewed symbolically, and you can see them as communication from your subconscious. it can actually be helpful to acknowledge hallucinations and delusions. So don't be afraid if you're experiencing psychosis, because it's communication from the subconscious and you can learn from it. It can help to be curious about hallucinations and delusions instead of being afraid. It also really helps to acknowledge and try to lessen if you have any internalized self-stigma regarding psychosis and experiencing psychosis. I found a lot of my struggle was in a stigma that I imposed on myself, and when I learned how to not feel so much stigma towards my own experiences, it became a lot easier to cope with experiencing. Dealing with psychosis does not mean that you're crazy. It does not mean that you're losing your mind. It's possible to live a functional, meaningful, and fulfilling life while dealing with psychosis. For some, psychosis can get better over time. I've definitely seen that in myself, and my psychosis is far better now than it was in the past. Nowadays, I only deal with hallucinations periodically, and I deal with far less delusions than before. For some people, elements of psychosis may remain, even after treatment. But even if an issue still remains, you can always get better at coping with that issue. You can always get better at learning how to deal with experiences such as psychosis. So in that way, things can always get better. And if you or somebody that you know deals with psychosis, I hope this can provide helpful information and help you to know that there are others going through it too.